ahead and call the meeting to order. Would you please take roll?
Ms. Atkins.
Here.
Mr. Houston.
Here.
Mrs. McDaniel.
Here.
Mrs. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Stoffer.
Here.
Mr. Wylage.
Here.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the January 9th, 2023 agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins.
Yes.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Wylage.
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. Commendation and good news.
The only good news is we have a former Missouri, or a former Lewis Central player, Max Duggins, playing in the championship game tonight. And I will have more. We've actually had quite a bit of success from former students and current students, and I'll have that at our next board meeting as a PowerPoint.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just to highlight the concert tonight with
Yep.
show choir opener. They did have an early competition this weekend and placed third runner-up at Papio South
That is good
for Lewis
news.
Corporation.
And they typically don't compete this early, so that's pretty impressive.
All right. Next on our agenda is comments and suggestions. This is when anyone in the audience here at the ERC or anyone online, if they want to type something in, can address the board. Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And this is an updated personnel sheet?
Yes, there are a few changes, a few additions. They are marked with asterisks.
And you have the additional fundraiser as well.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Wylage.
Yes.
Ms. Atkins.
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. Report 6.01, superintendent report.
So I just have a couple things. So we started our iReady winter testing today, and so that is we do that 3 times a year. Is that correct, Dave? Yep. So that's a big benchmark for us. And then I was actually just notified while I was gone. Oops, sorry, I scoot over here a little bit. I was notified when we were gone that the chamber called and said that they are going to, the Council Bluffs Chamber is going to award Lewis Central the Community Impact Award this year for our renovations and theater edition. So that is on January 26th from 4:30 to 7. If you are interested in attending, please let me know. And I think that it's good to have a decent showing there. So, but if you're interested in attending, please just let me know and I'll make sure we get a ticket for you. And then February 14th is Day on the Hill for IASB. If anybody wants to attend that, it's an opportunity to go in and meet with our state legislators before they kind of go in the meat of kind of the legislative season. So if you're interested in going, we can also set up independent meetings that day with any of our local legislators that we want to speak with. So just let me know. And then the NSBA National Conference, so the National School Board Association National Conference, is March 31st through April 3rd. If you're interested in going into that, that's something that I know the board has done in the past, has gone to the national conference. It's a great opportunity to expand your knowledge and get maybe some ideas and other insights from boards across the nation. And I guess I went to my first one last year. I thought it was very good. I mean, there was a lot of really good ideas, and just even having conversations with people from other states, it's eye-opening. So if you're interested in going, please let me know. The scoreboard, So originally the scoreboard is gonna be on the agenda tonight. This is for the outdoor football, soccer, track scoreboard. That is, we had to get an architect involved because it involves removing the pole, the light pole that's in the south end zone, and then we don't use that one anyway because it shines in our kids' eyes, you know, when they're playing football and soccer, and so we do it a little bit for track, but it's because it involves that. I got an architect involved just to make sure, and then with all the data runs and everything, that we're doing it correctly. So right now, we're anticipating that the plans are gonna be ready by the next board meeting. So I will bring that to the board to kind of discuss those final plans for the scoreboard once again. That's gonna be done in conjunction with Iowa Western and then our booster club. So, so tonight's the football field, or the football soccer field, and then it'll be, scoreboard will be the next one. And then facilities assessment with Shive Hattery, right now they're targeting an early February date for that to be ready. So I'm asking them to hopefully have kind of an initial results done for the board early February. So then we can kind of present them to the board, and then we'll move forward with getting some community groups together and talking with them about what the findings are and maybe where we go from here. So, and then I am going to send, I crafted an email about calendars and a survey to send to parents and staff. So tomorrow, I'm gonna send that survey out to parents and staff about calendars, just basically asking for feedback on what they believe, what their priorities are. You know, obviously, as a district, we have to abide by state laws. We have to provide 1,080 hours of instruction. That's bare minimum. I don't think we do anything to bare minimum, so we like to, our hours are closer to about 1,100 by the time we're done. We cannot start before August 23rd, which really ties our hands to what we're able to do flexibility-wise. And so I think sometimes parents, when they want 3 days at Thanksgiving and 2 weeks at winter break, and then they want a week-long spring break, and they want to get out before Memorial Day, that's not physically possible. There are just not that many weekdays in the calendar at all to make that happen. And so my email will explain that to parents, and then ask them to kind of just tell us, what are your priorities? You know, is the number one priority for parents getting out before Memorial Day? If so, that means that we have to look back and we have to maybe give on some other areas, whether it's that week-long spring break, the 2 weeks at Christmas, the 3 days at Thanksgiving. Otherwise, there's just simply not enough time in the schedule. So, but I think it's important to let our staff members and parents have a voice in that, and to be able to say, yes, the priority is a week-long spring break, and it's getting out before Memorial Day, which means that winter break shortens up, you know, to whatever we can make that be. It might means we come to school on that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It might mean that we have less day breaks throughout the year. So, but at least we know where the priorities lie for parents. So hopefully we'll have that, and then I'll bring kind of some information and rough draft to the board at the next, or if not the next meeting, the first one in February. So, and then parent-teacher conferences, we did put out a survey to parents. Each building did about parent-teacher conferences, and then we kind of had the discussion at the building levels with teachers about what worked, what didn't work. One of the things that came out is a couple of the buildings were requesting, primarily the middle school, because they don't have an all-day out, or that Thursday they go to school. They wanted a little bit more time so parents didn't feel as rushed, and so that way they were able to get all their conferences in. So we are going to make a switch, and I can do that, and we're just going to back up. Instead of an hour early dismissal on that Monday and Thursday, we're going to do a 2-hour early dismissal. We've already notified parents, we've already notified the teachers, and it's just to be able to give a little bit of flexibility, a little more time to primarily the middle school and high school, but because all the busing routes are affected, it's got to impact everybody. So just going to see if it works in January, and then we'll kind of go from there. So it was the easiest way to kind of respect what parents and our staff wanted. but then not completely disrupt the current schedule, so. And then that's it.
So just to clarify on that, the Monday of conferences will be a 2-hour early dismissal for secondary students. So the secondary routes will go first. Elementary routes will follow. And then Thursday will be 2-hour early out for secondary students because elementary students don't have school that day.
Yep.
So those are really the only changes. Everything else of that week stays the same.
Right.
Right. Well, and I know, especially at the middle school, it seems like discussions might take longer. And so then you're waiting for your turn, and I don't know how they really do it now. Do they get into like the gym or?
We're going to be doing hybrid conferencing again.
Oh, okay.
Where parents can use Pick a Time to actually schedule conferences. They can do them face-to-face or online,
Okay.
either one.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember when I got a lot of exercise. I'd go up and down the steps to see what teacher, what classrooms were, open or had a shorter line, and because otherwise you stand in one, then you don't get to the other one. So I understand. So I think that'll be good for parents and the teachers. Okay. We'll go on to our discussion items. 7.01, receive bids for a field turf replacement.
So we opened these today at noon, we received 3 bids. The first one we received was actually from this Pro Turf Inc. They're an outfit out of Texas, is where their address was. Their bid came in, but it did not include a bid bond, which was required. It did not also include, there were several things that were required for them to submit. Bid bond was not offered. They didn't use the form that were required in the spec book, which there was more of a typed narrative. And then there was a required binder status that was required to be filled out and turned in by law, just to kind of show that they are a contractor in the state of Iowa, that they're licensed for that. So they didn't submit those. They did have the lowest bid, but because they didn't have those areas, it also made me kind of nervous that they didn't have any of that, and that it was submitted more of a narrative form versus, and I'll make sure they receive that feedback as well, that even though they were the lowest, they didn't provide those guaranteed bid documents, and it was also not done in the format in which was required. And then, so the second one that came in was Midwest Field Turf. Midwest Field Turf are located out of Denison, Iowa. They actually they're the original installers of the field as it is right now. They did a base bid number 1 of $585,700. Base bid number 2, which the difference is base bid number 1, it's all new fill. So the little rubber pieces and sand that goes into the field, because the field actually has about, that much turf that sticks up, and then it's filled with sand and rubber, and then all you really see is about a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch on the top. And so the first bid is all new fill, and the second one is reusing the old fill, and then you replenish with new fill as you need it. So they recommended base bid number 2, which is reusing the old fill. They have a process where they basically they have a couple machines that go across that suck up all the old fill, that separate the beads from larger particles that don't belong in there, and then they actually use that to fill up the first 3/4 of it, and then they come with new fill for the final 2 inches or whatever it is. So that's why it's $40,000 less. Otherwise, it's the same product. They feel very confident in that because they were the ones that installed the turf, and so they know exactly what fill is in there, how much can probably be reused, and so.
Didn't we a handful of years ago just put in we re-topped it or something like that in the last few years?
Yeah, so they go through, and you can buy basically bags of that, and then they go through and they'll take a spreader machine and they'll go and kind of redistribute it, because some of it packs down, some of it gets blown away,
Yep.
some of it gets trapped in cleats. I'm sure if you have kids that play, you probably got a lot of it at home.
Oh,
So And then Mid-American Golf and Landscape Inc., they came in, they do an AstroTurf. So we kind of bid out field turf, but then we allowed other bids to come in and different varieties of material. So Pro Turf did one that I haven't heard of. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was something Pro Turf. I don't know where that was, but anyway. And then Mid-American was AstroTurf, so you might recognize that. That was kind of the original turf that was out there. But their base bid was $702,149, and then their reuse, the fill bid, was $694,776. And the reason they didn't go down as much is because it's kind of an estimate. If you didn't install it, you really don't know how much fill's there, so you have to kind of guess. So, and then what you see, unit price one, that there's a nailer board that goes around the outside of the track. So if they have to remove the nailer board in order to put down a new nailer board, that's what actually holds the turf in. The cost is $9 per square foot, and then $45 per square foot is if there's any low spots once they remove the turf, if there's any low spots in the rock or the sand or anything like that, if they have to add more material. So they have that in there as well. This was all run by Iowa Western. I talked to Doc Kenny today. He is good with base bid number 2 for Midwest Field Turf, as well as the other unit prices if, for miscellaneous stuff. That 543, they did give us an option to look at taking out things like lettering, logo in the middle of the field, the little field that's kind of on the north side, the little practice field, taking that out, any of the Iowa Western decals, anything like that. And but this fell right into what we were expecting. We were expecting 550 to 600. This is actually a little bit lower than what we were expecting. So so the recommendation would be to approve base bid number 2 for Midwest Field Turf. It's got everything we want with the design that we put out there, and should be a really, really classy look once it's done. And they are guaranteed to be done by August 1st. So they will start the minute soccer's over, and then they'll be done by August 1st. Any other questions about bids? And just a reminder, Iowa Western will be paying for 20% of this cost and whatever incidentals we have. So we'll just bill them at the end.
Any discussion? Any questions? All right. 7.02, modified supplement amount for at-risk dropout prevention.
So this is something the board approves every year. This amount is given to us by the state. It's based on a percentage. And just to kind of give you guys a little background information, it used to be that the board had flexibility to approve up to 5% of what a student SSA is in order to receive this funding. And this funding can be used on guidance counselors, any at-risk dropout prevention programming we've had, school psychologists. I mean, it can be used, they've really widened it so we can use it in quite a bit of items that relate to dropout prevention, and so are at-risk students. And we are currently back in, I think, 2009, the state legislatures came and said, well, we're going to cap it. Wherever you're at right now, that's where you're going to be for forever. And at that point, I believe we're at 3%. Is that where we're at, Andrea? Yeah, 3%. And so some schools, this is another one of those inequities, and I'm just going to bring it forward right now because this is one of those scenarios where some schools across the state, quite a few schools, get 5%. Other schools get 2.5%. When I was in Missouri Valley, we had 2.5%. Some schools get 3.5%. Some schools get 4%. We're stuck at 3%. So if and this ends up coming out as a property tax. So in my opinion, if the legislators want to do something on equity, they need to look at giving us the opportunity to get the same amount of funding that on a percentage basis that any other school across the state gets. And that would be a real easy thing for them to do, but it's real hard for them for some reason. So, but what this is for, I'm off my soapbox now, but what this is for is you guys will be approving that we are able to request up to $223,108. No, that is the general fund match that we have to provide. $669,323. So, this is for next year.
Is there any discussion? Okay. We'll go on to 7.03, a tentative settlement agreement, and per Iowa Code, Section 21.5C, we are allowed to have this and discuss it, the strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation, and we are allowed to have this into closed session. So with that, can I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheppel?
Yes. Just to clarify, we also had a discussion, 7.04, employee leave request, and that was also, we were able to go into closed session on that pursuant to Iowa Code 21.51A. And so we we were in closed session for that also, so we will be doing taking action on that. Right now for our agenda is comments and suggestions. This is the second time during our agenda that anyone in the audience or anyone online, if they want to type something in, can address the board. Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to our action items. 9.01, approval of bid for field turf replacement.
Madam Chairwoman.
Mr. Stoffer.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bid from Midwest Field Turf in the amount of, for base bid 2, $543,400, and then the subsequent unit prices as necessary for the high school field turf replacement maintenance project.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just for a point of clarity, since I did it at $543,400, if they do replace those boards at $9 a foot, I mean, that'll just be
Yeah, yeah.
within the reasonable allowance. Okay.
Anyone else? Vote, please.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. 9.02, modified supplemental amount for at-risk dropout prevention.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Stoffer.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the total modified supplement amount of $669,323 for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wylage? Yes. Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. 9.03, tentative settlement agreement.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Stoffer.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the tentative settlement agreement negotiated by our insurer EMC in the pending case of ED and GC versus Lewis Central Community School District.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. 9.04, employee leave request.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Stoffer.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request
Second.
as stated.
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. Items of interest, future board meetings. Our next regular board meeting will be January 23rd at 6:30. I don't think there's any national championship games or any show choir that night. So we will probably be back to the 6:30 schedule. Anyone else?
No, I'll send you guys an update. I did get Bob is watching online, and he mentioned that the IASB joined COSBA this year instead of NASB. So the COSBA consortium would be the conference that would be recommended to board members to attend. So same thing, national conference, just different, it's just a different conference. So
Okay.
I'll send information to you though via email.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah, I think we've done this like every 3 years we've gone, and so it's
Okay.
not a yearly thing.
Right,
But unless
correct.
someone else wants to go an opposite year, but that's usually what we've done, and we haven't gone for a few years. I think, since Mark was here, Mark Schur
Probably
was here.
because of COVID and everything else.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?